Good evening, Abhishek. Are you being able
Yes.
to unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, you're audible. Would you like to switch on your camera as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So thank you so much for joining in, Abhishek. And on behalf of NHRD Kolkata Chapter, I'm honored to introduce you, sir. Abhishek Tiwary, the Senior VP and Global HR Head for Tech Mahindra for the BP vertical, has joined Tech Mahindra recently in April 2023. Prior to Tech Mahindra, he served at KPMG for 15 years. In his last appointment at KPMG, he served as the Global HR Head for Advisory Business based out of their New York office. As a global HR executive with a career spanning over 20 years, Abhishek has run HR functions for global enterprises through their growth journeys, having worked in a variety of sectors, which includes technology, consulting, professional services, media, and government services. Abhishek has played a key role in culture building, organization development, diversity, and inclusion frameworks, which is very close to his heart, and big data analytics. In diverse environments, working alongside and leading global teams with multicultural sensitivities. Throughout his career, he has endeavored to lead business leaders into adopting a people first mindset. Well, that's a mindset we must talk about, while our topic for today is AI and HR. So he says that it's a people first mindset for sustainable business growth. He believes that this has led to creating sustainable and thriving organizational ecosystems that empower people to live and work with pride and passion. He's passionate about, as we discussed, diversity and inclusion, and has sought to create inclusive workplaces. He devotes a part of his time as a mentor to individuals from undeserved communities, transitioning military members, veterans, and girl students. He also volunteers his time as a speaker, writer, and board member, serving academic institutions and technology startups. What is important and very, very interesting for us to know also is Abhishek started his career with the Indian Navy and is a proud alumni of National Defense Academy, Karakwasla. He holds a master's degree in personnel management from SIBM Pune with a keen interest in the interplay between behavioral science, evolving workplace technology, people-focused management, and macroeconomic factors. He's currently pursuing PhD in organization behavior from IIM Lucknow. His research is focused on causal relationships between automation technologies, workplace, and outcomes for employees. So all this information is promising to us a very, very knowledgeable and relevant session in the upcoming 1 hour on AI and HR. I would humbly invite Abhishek to add in anything that he wants to share with us first about himself.
And now, thank you so much for. Am I audible? I'm assuming I am.
Yes, you are. You are.
Can you all hear me? Great.
Yes, you're.
So, thank you very much for inviting me to this session. Very honored. Work in the for the HR professionals and the world of HR. So, kudos to you all. I'm very pleased to be here, and I look forward to the discussion. The only thing I'd say is that as you can see, I'm sitting at an airport trying to take a flight out of Mumbai right now. So I'm hoping there's no disturbance. I've tried to occupy a quiet place. So please pardon me for any disturbance. And I'm available for the next 30, 40 minutes to answer any questions. And topic of artificial intelligence is very close to my heart. It's invading our workspaces like no other technology has ever done so. Some of it is fear, and some of it is reality. And scientists and technologists across the world are still trying to decode AI. But clearly, I mean, if you just look at the large language models, which are essentially the feeder into AI systems, just the sheer number of LLMs that are getting added to the AI systems, generative AI systems, is humongous. I mean, runs in millions, hundreds of millions. So clearly, the scale at which it is advancing is and challenging at the same time. So my personal hypothesis is we should learn how to embrace it. Technologies have come and gone in the past, and human race has done a beautiful job so far. So I have no doubts that we will continue to adopt it for the best use of humanity. So I'm open to any questions you may have in the way you want to run the discussion.
Shweta, you're on mute.
I think.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are
Okay.
audible and visible.
Okay. So as I started telling you this, that there's a lot for us to learn, and hence we would not want to keep any specific questions. However, I have been reading a lot about AI in HR, and there is a Harvard write-up that I came across some time back when we were in the discussion of having this dialogue on HR Speak. And it said that AI tools have the potential to help across hiring, development, and retention. AI can help companies address pain points. However, it's not as simple as plug and play. There are serious risks and drawbacks that the company can face in its management processes. In particular, they need to address the low trust in AI decision making, bias and ethical concerns, and legal risks that may occur likewise. So, in the context of this introduction, what is basically, according to you, the envisioning of the ideal balance between AI-driven automation and human expertise in HR function?
It's a very interesting question, and one that comes to the fore quite often, right? So there are different kind of hypotheses in this journey, and one of them, which is very close to my thesis topic, my PhD thesis topic, is the minute you hear automation in an organization, you think job insecurity, you think low self-efficacy. So a whole lot of these imply variables come to play. And we almost think of automation as one that replaces human jobs, right? I think the AI-driven automation in particular is one that is going to augment and amplify human capability, and particularly uh, human creative capability, right? So I don't think it's one that will replace it, you know. And I think, and it's been true for a lot of automation, but I clearly believe that we can harness it in a way that enhances our capabilities rather than sort of completely eliminates it. So if you have to take, so clearly AI has the capability to completely eliminate repetitive tasks, right? It has the capability of eliminating time-consuming tasks, you know. And so that our professionals can focus on more strategic and value-added activities, and we stop becoming reactive as HR professionals, trying to just solve problems that come before us, right? So, in fact, I have often told my teams that my job as an HR leader is to make sure that each HR professional in my team gets back 25% of his or her time, so that they can use that 25% time for consultative teams, for business, true strategic business partnering, and if nothing else, just building good relationships with the business, right? And AI can help you actually free up that time. So think of it as something that will augment what you do. So you know, and make sure that you get to a place where you're using it as a partner, as opposed to as something that will eliminate it clearly. I mean, I think far away from it. That's where I'll answer the question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving your views on how the entire balance can be created. And taking it forward from there, an emerging wave of AI tools for talent management have the potential to help organizations find better job candidates fast, provide more impactful employment development, and promote retention through a more constructive approach. In this context, how can HR departments use AI to understand employee performance and growth without invading their privacy?
Again, privacy is a big one, and I think HR departments sit at a whole lot of PRI data. Right? When employees are joining, we collect a lot of personal information from employees, and we are traditional custodians of that information. You know, whether it was the days of hard copy files, which we used to maintain in those locker rooms, to now when we maintain them on systems. So clearly, and there's always a risk of losing the data, particularly compensation. You know, date of birth, Aadhaar card information. You have a PAN card information because you're paying salaries, etc. So I think, as has always been the case, I would use simple principles that are age-old principles. One is be transparent about what data you're collecting and why are you collecting that data, right? So clearly, consent is important. So be transparent in collecting that data. Make sure you take employee consent in collection stage. Also, if you're going to use a technology, if you're going to use an AI system, it is important for you to tell the employee how AI is going to be used. So make sure they understand how is the system using their data, right? So that transparency is also important. So key theme I would say is transparency. And when you collect that data, make sure you use it where it's necessary, right? You will all of us are HR professionals sitting in this room. A lot of requests come to us about collecting data, about you are trying to do a DEI initiative, and they'll say, give me all information about all females in the employee with their dates of birth, right? So we can do a age-wise or level-wise intervention on DEI. I think just ask repeated questions. I think, again, age-old principle of anonymizing data. Just make sure when you give data, you don't give names. Aggregate data where it's possible, right? So it's important for you to make sure that you pseudonymize data, you anonymize data. Implement data security measures. So partner with your information security group to make sure that we understand, and particularly the custodians of data and users of data, both understand data security and conduct trainings for them, and penalize people who of course don't follow those rules and policies. So to the extent, we're just making sure that there are guardrails around usage of data and by who can be authorized to use the data. And I think the one thing that finally I would say is that give employees control over their own data, right? So whatever data you're using, I think AI systems are designed in a way, at least the data that you're using for me, just make sure that you give me control over my set of data. So that's what I would say. Those are some of the things that you should keep in mind. I'm sure all of this was already done, but I think the key is transparency. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. And with transparency and empowerment, we also built in the accountability factor in the individuals, because they are getting the empowerment to use the data the way they want. And in the process, the responsibility and ownership also kind of proceeds up. And having said that, sir, what role should regulatory bodies and industry standards play in shaping the ethical use of AI in HR? And how can organizations stay compliant with evolving regulations?
So I have to say that this is a tricky question, right? It's a tricky question because regulators across the world are still trying to understand the impact AI is going to have from a privacy perspective, right? So I know the US has come up with an act recently. The EU came up with it first. So regulators can play a clear role. They have been playing role around. So GDPR, for example, came in the EU and the UK, and that's about really how does data travel? How do you protect data? So some of those regulations have to be extended in the context of AI, and particularly if my data is being used to to arrive at something. First of all, regulators have to make sure that whatever product is being made out of because of use of my data through AI has to be ethical. It clearly understands the norms of competition. You come to HR, you could have AI systems use your compensation data to design compensation. Now, you can argue on both sides of that the table on that argument. You know, sometimes you can argue that AI can use your recruiting data, your pipeline data to come up with the right candidate for you. But is the AI so your regulators have to make sure that is the data that's being fed in is right or not? Is it being and plus whatever product is coming out, are we making sure that that product is truly representative of the sample and the sample itself is the right sample that has been fed in, right? So I think regulators have a role to play along the chain. It is still early stages, but I can tell you that the technology is moving faster than regulators are keeping pace with it. So it's an open question. I haven't answered your question, but I can tell you that this is a big problem area. It's a tricky area. And as industry bodies, we have to be able to advise the regulators on how we can help with that.
That's right. In fact, as AI is evolving by itself also, there are a lot of write-ups in LinkedIn also into how commandments are being followed to create the right data-centric approach in different levels and fields. Moving on to the next segment, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, 4.2 million people voluntarily quit their jobs in August 22. And at the same time, there were 10.1 million job openings. Between the great resignations and more recent trends like quiet quitting, traditional approach for winning talented workers haven't been really explored that far. And how will AI play a role in the same is the question I want to ask. And hence, what I want to ask you is as AI becomes more integrated into HR functions, there is a concern about the potential for job displacement and dehumanization of the employee experience. How can the organization balance the use of AI with maintaining a human-centric approach?
And this is a similar sort of a question that you asked right at the beginning of the session.
Beginning, that's right. That's right.
Right. So I would say that again, AI has from an HR professional perspective, and especially recruiters, AI can be a huge boon from the perspective of making sure that they do away with the tasks of screening resumes. Now, again, there are both sides of using AI and screening resumes. I think the input data is a big risk there. But if you get the input data right, if you pass that stage, AI can actually do away with laborious task of coming up with the right set of set of resumes when it comes to sort of interviewing, etc. Now, so take an example in a company like Tech Mahindra, we hire about 70,000 people every year, 70, right? Um, Now, to hire 70,000 people, to onboard 70,000 people, we have to make about 120,000 offers. I mean, I would probably go on to say about 150,000 offers. For 150,000 offers, we've got to be interviewing about, I would say, 6x or 7x, right? So you're actually talking about almost 800 to 900,000. Now, and we have we have a recruiting team of about, I would say, 1,100 people. Now, look at the scale. I really think, as much as my recruiters believe their jobs will be taken away because we are now trying to experiment with AI in resume screening, the reality is, if we get that AI piece right, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we get it right, I'm going to make the life of my recruiters far easier. And like I said in the beginning, I'm going to ask my recruiters to focus on more value-added, qualitative parts of recruitment, rather than just sort of looking at keywords in a resume and filtering them. So, and I can tell you that in doing so, they're actually losing out on many good candidates today. We are probably not doing justice to many candidates that are applying to us, many good candidates that are applying to us. So I know I digressed a little bit in answering this question, but I want the group to know, and I'm happy to add, I'm happy to hear other views here as well, that I don't think AI and humans have to work in competition. AI and human can be synonymous and really be a force to reckon with together. And that's the challenge we have to work with, and that's what is going to keep this technology growing, because humans have to understand this technology, that it's here to help. It's not here to really to take jobs away. So I think you can be most effective by identifying areas where AI can be effective. Train HR professionals. I think it's really important to make sure that you train HR in effective use of AI, and just showing them the beats and the shaft, and ensure AI-driven HR systems are designed with ethical considerations clearly. Making sure that the input data is right, and then have a way to monitor and measure that it's all going on the right track, and you will end up knowing, many years back, we will know that banks got automated for the most part, and there was a huge furor by banking employees. They were, hartals after hartals about strikes, about technology coming in, but no banker ever lost their job because of technology. And in fact, their jobs became easier.
That's right. That's right. That's the most important point, that how does life become easy? How does way of working gets better when we are not repeating the same thing manually, and it can be offshored, if I may use that word, to an intelligent system, which can rather code and decode it into a process which makes things simpler for us. And moving forward from here, I would open up the chat. So I would request the chapter coordinator to open up the chat box for comments and questions relevant to your job role, to the participants' view of AI and HR in their own domain of work, whether it's in HR or subsequent related roles that you may come from, or you may be completely a fresher. Please feel free to ask questions and post them in the chat box. I would rather have this conversation going interactive from here on than keep it at the question and answer level, because there is a lot of new things that we would want to know from Abhishek, and I'm sure that's going to value add to our lives to get better at the future of HR. So season 5, episode 10 is going to more about how is AI going to be relevant in our workspace, in our role. So I request the coordinator to please. Yes, so we've got a first question from Ashish Datta, and he asks, how can AI help in performance management? Ashish, would you like to talk about, or if there's a scope to unmute, would you like to talk about which sector you represent, or a little bit of introduction, and then maybe the response could be more relevant to your domain? I would request the chapter coordinator to unmute him, please.
It's a good question, Ashish.
Would you like to take it up, Abhishek, before he can, and he can?
Yeah, sure. So
Sure.
I think so AI is already being used for performance evaluation in small or big ways, right? So I think it was one of the first use cases alongside recruitment. So we have AI powered performance review software. So what do these softwares do? They actually automate the collection and analysis of data from a variety of sources. So that includes your employee performance, customer satisfaction surveys, your your 360-degree feedback and your upward feedback. So and employee surveys, right? So it collects all of that data and analyzes and gives team performance, manager performance, leader performance. Not so much the individual performance, but even it talks about how people are performing in a particular business unit. Then there are AI-powered chatbots and feedback platforms, so which basically they are tools that can be used to provide employees with real-time feedback on their performance. I think one of the biggest challenges in traditional performance management systems is you have to wait an entire year um, um, just give me 1 second. You have to wait an entire year to get to the feedback, as well as opportunities to request feedback. So clearly the chatbots can really say, give me my performance feedback, and the chatbot has your data, right? So what sales have you done, how many customers have you met, what's your employee satisfaction survey. So on a real time basis, it can tell you how I'm performing, so you can improve. Then there are AI-powered career development platforms, right? So these platforms can help employees with their skills and interests. So, for example, it can link. You can either self-assess your development areas and ask for training, so it can link you with trainings, or it can just come up with a list of things that you need to work on. So it will allow you to look at training content based on how you have performed in the past. So it can look at last 5 years, right? So and then it's used to advise managers about how we can use the performance data. So there are examples around. Google uses it already to identify employees who are at risk of performing poorly. So Microsoft uses AI to help employees develop their skills and knowledge. So basically, they have an AI-powered learning platform. IBM is using AI to help managers conduct more fair and objective performance reviews, because it then gives them analysis of past data. Now, as a manager, you know how you are always biased by recency, right? Recency bias is a real problem in performance evaluation. AI can actually debunk that myth. So it gets you data for 5 years. He may have done very well on the last project, but look at the yearly or 2-year data. So things like that can make it more objective. Is what I would say is the use of AI in performance evaluation.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
I can't switch on my video. I think it's blocked. But anyway, thank you. I also come from IT. I think there are some certain parameters which are very easy. If you talk of margin, profitability, we can get that. But more in terms of, in employees, how is their efficiency levels? In that, I think I didn't put that right, perhaps, that in that regard, how to really measure the efficiency and whether AI can help? Okay, there are customer escalations, there are rework costs. It becomes very complicated if you have to do it all manually and within a large workforce. So is there something that can be done? Because to me, how to measure the real efficiency has always been a challenge.
And efficiencies, I'm assuming you're talking of efficiencies of the HR team.
I'm talking in general. I mean, if you're talking of HR also, But in general or specifically HR, how do you really measure their efficiency?
Again, and if you're talking of measuring efficiency, it's, and let's take it separately. Now, clearly, trying to get efficiencies in place is a factor of many things. Like if you're in a qualitative role, you are clearly trying to make sure that the quality and efficiency sometimes can be less synonymous. In lower rung jobs, in operating jobs, you're trying to get to a place where efficiency is measured for all the operating parts of the role. And in there, AI can really help. It can get to, any repetitive task that you have, any measurement of things that you are expected to do. So let's say if you have targets by quarter, by month, those targets can be fed in the system, and it can actually measure you against those targets, and thereby tell you whether you are being less efficient or more efficient. But as you get more senior in your roles, I think efficiency is a tricky concept. You are probably being measured for qualitative parts of your role, and I would caution us to try and measure efficiencies at those levels. But clearly, for the most part, at junior levels, up to 4 or 5 years of experience, whether it's in HR or in the business, if you are clear about what you are expecting from your people, and in terms of goals and metrics, it is easy to therefore measure efficiency. And AI can absolutely, and AI-powered systems and AI-powered performance systems can absolutely measure that for you, and in fact advise you on the progress you're making on efficiency. So I don't think measuring efficiency is a problem. I just caution us to use it judiciously, because sometimes efficiency is not all that you want to measure. And Shweta, I probably will take 1 or 2 more questions. I know this became a little tricky for me as I had something else to do, but I'll take 1 or 2 more questions, and then we can potentially end the session.
Sure.
Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for highlighting that efficiency for indicators we address is relative in context.
Yeah.
So what is the definition and matrices, which will then give the indication towards the AI tool or the AI algorithm that we will use to counter the output of that
That's
particular
right.
matrix.
Yeah. And like I said, in any AI system, your input data is very important. If that is not pointing to true norms, then you can actually end up having disastrous results everywhere. So
Very well.
input is more important, I would say. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. So Indranil moves on to ask that our Chief Justice in a symposium recently said that AI in recruitment has shown certain biases towards male in some position, considering machines has followed sequences that has more male representation. How big a concern?
Right.
Probably he's asking for the validity of this statement.
It's a very valid concern, and we have seen enough examples of disasters happening. And I'm saying disasters because I don't know if you know, there have been examples of how AI has gone bad because the input data has been wrong. In fact, one of the country's military used data, and it went completely wrong on its gender denotion, and so absolutely valid question, and that's the play of input data, because the person who is inputting data, if they are biased, then and if they are biased, even if it's unconscious bias, you will have output data in the same manner. And the Chief Justice is absolutely right, because any male-dominated system, so we have to be very careful in what's going into the system. And biases will and it's important for you to therefore monitor those systems. I mean, it's good that we called it out right in the beginning. Imagine if 5 years had passed and we hadn't been able to catch it. So that monitoring and measuring at periodic steps is very important. In fact, one of the suggestions I made in a session was have an ethical AI committee in your company, whose job is to very independently measure the effects of AI. So, and you will realize there are many bad effects. So
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last question that we are taking for this evening is, how can HR professionals effectively communicate the benefits of AI adoption to employees who might be concerned about job security or privacy? This has been asked by Rajiv Sen.
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
How can HR professionals effectively communicate the benefits of AI adoption to employees who might be concerned about job security and privacy? So I think this is performance driven and PMS driven, and how they maybe 9-box driven. And hence, what happens to people who are not in the high potential or solid potential and high performance and all of that, and their thought on job security and privacy.
I think I'll go back to the fears employees have about AI being introduced into performance systems and various other systems, reward systems within the firm. I think it's important to be transparent about how AI is being used, like I said in the beginning. Clearly, people want to understand how the data is being used, how is AI using algorithms, what is the input data, who is inputting that data, what is going into the system about me, right? And it's very important to know for me what data are you feeding about me, and therefore being very particular about collecting and using only the data that is necessary. So that transparency is my one word answer to this question about making sure, because the fear is quite real. Because so far you could argue with a human being on the other side of the table, and now there's an entire system. While the system may be right in the way it's conducting its duty, but that duty itself may be in question if I have not monitored it rightly, I have not input the data correctly, or I have not written the right algorithm. So that's the age-old debate, and I think that's where companies have a role to play. They have an intervening role to play in having a right, AI ethics committee. Having regulators have a role to play because now labor courts will be filled with those cases where some system has decided the fate of an employee, and now labor courts have to adjudicate on matters like this. So I think transparency is going to be key early on, and making sure that we have a body within the company that sort of that's neutral in its adjudication.
So the key words playing out, if I may summarize, is transparency, input, monitor. So these are some key words that is absolutely playing out. And hence, I'm just taking the liberty of asking you one last question, which is from the learning domain. So we've got one question from Juheen Datta. And
I really have one last minute.
So that's it. Yeah. So how can AI-based LMS system help HR professionals? What aspects does AI focus in LMS system or in learning? I think we can widen the scope.
I think learning, if you have to design learning system and learning needs of an organization and of individuals, there is a whole lot of input data in arriving at what I should be learning to get to the next level or perform better at the job. That input data can be very AI heavy. That input data can be your performance management system. It can be your past academic record. It can be your aspiration. It can be about what you have learned in the past. All of that can be input in and go into the learning. And in fact, a big use case today for AI in HR is learning systems. It's actually able to curate a very realistic, authentic list of training that I must take to get to the next level. In fact, organizations are heavily relying on it. And managers are heavily relying. So it's very linked to a performance management system, development needs of individuals and leaders. So clearly, LMSs, after recruiting, LMS is the big use case, and linked with it is performance evaluation. So I would rather advocate for organizations to use. It's a very to use AI for learning management systems. Heavily use it because it's the least controversial, in my opinion. If AI comes up with a list of trainings for me, I can take a look at it and quickly tell you what I need personally versus what I don't. So I think it's most non-controversial. So I would urge learning leaders to use AI heavily for their learning management system.
Thank you so much for that, Abhishek. And as you said, we need to wrap up the session. A quick request to all our listeners to switch on your camera, to have a group photograph with Abhishek, which will go into the social media for us. Thank you very much. Where is
Thank
our
you.
chapter coordinator? I'm looking for a chapter coordinator. Please put on your camera
Quick picture.
for a quick picture, please. Joyce, would you like to take the picture for us?
I have taken Shweta.
So
Perfect.
have I.
Thank-
I have the backup as
Thank you
well.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you
I'm
so
sorry
much,
I had to cut
Abhishek.
this short. I
That's
enjoyed this
absolutely fine
conversation.
with
I enjoyed
us.
this topic. I'm happy to reach out for you all to reach out to me individually, and we can have a discussion about it.
Thank you
This
so
is
much
only
for
the
that.
beginning.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, listeners.
Thank you.
I hope that's a lot of value addition and thought that we are taking back with us. And we can reflect on the same and come back with any questions that we have for Abhishek. Thank you so much for
Perfect.
joining in for HR Speak. And we will connect very soon for our next episode of HR Speak, episode 6 of season 10. Have a great
Thank you.
evening
Thank you all.
and a weekend ahead. Bye-bye. Thank you.